Inside Foos presents FoosTalk Live.
The numbers guy, Clay Toomey from Dallas, Texas. Clay, are you there? Can you chime in?
I am here. I gotta admit, I totally misunderstood the homework assignment. I thought we were here to talk about the top 50 most common foosball rules that Oklahoma Foosers don't know. So I apologize if my input is not super helpful.
Uh-oh, here we go. And he kept it down to 50, I think.
It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Coming to you live from the studios of Inside Foos, it's the 88th episode of FoosTalk Live, brought to you by InsideFoos.com, offering monthly subscriptions with access to some of the most exciting matches ever recorded, plus live tournaments, pre- and post-show analysis, interviews, and original programming. Sign up now at InsideFoos.com. Also brought to you by ProtectoFlex, the world's premier foosball safety accessory. Go to Protecto-Flex.com. Brought to you by Rodlock. Practice more, reach less. The best practice tool in foosball. Visit rod-lock.com. Brought to you by 518 Prints, one of the best printers of promotional items in foosball apparel. Visit 518prints.com. Brought to you by Foosballers, the movie. This Joe Hessling Foosball documentary is now available as a worldwide download at foosballersthemovie.com. Also brought to you by the USTSO, helping to usher in a new era of competitive foosball. Become a member at usafoosball.com. And brought to you by Foosball Clubs USA, promoting foosball through school systems all over the United States. Make a donation today at foosballclubs.usa.com. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson. It is the 88th episode of FoosTalk Live, and I'm already slurring my words, and we're just getting started here. Yes, it's a great night. We're back live, and of course, speaking about foosball is always better, more interesting when you've got somebody to talk to, like the greatest play-by-play foosball announcer of all time. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. You ended last week's show slurring your words, and you're opening up this week slurring. So kind of a carryover from last week. But it's great to be back. We're here. 88 shows, of course. Yep. 8, the lucky number, the Chinese lucky number, infinity. And so it's a good luck show tonight. We've got a great holiday show for you tonight, folks.
No doubt.
Once again, we're going to focus in on the top 50 greatest foosball players in the history of the American Tour, with numbers 40 through 31. As we get closer to that eventual top 10. And then we also are going to get a special holiday visit with Tony Spredeman tonight. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Couldn't be better. I'm just so looking forward to this. I know last time Tony was with us, he was trying to help me with my game with Foos by Tony. And, if I'd followed his instructions, maybe I'd be better by now. But,
I don't know, Tom. I think you're underrating yourself. You're a heck of a player. I've seen you play. You've got game back there. You have that goalie mentality that not everyone has. And so... I think Tony was somewhat successful with you.
Yeah. Okay. I will give him credit. No question. Well, I think things are certainly heating up when it comes to a little bit of controversy over last week's list when it comes to who got placed at what place. There's a couple of moments there where I think some people are like, well, wait, why is so-and-so at so-and-so and so-and-so at so-and-so? Yeah. But I knew that was going to happen.
Of course, we knew that. Yeah. That's part of the fun of it, right? It opens up conversation and dialogue. It's such a challenge, and we'll talk about this with both Adam and Mark. We got the full crew here with us tonight, which is exciting. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And obviously, over the past week, and Mark and Adam can address this as well.
Sure.
That's what it's all about. It's about controversy. It's about conversation. It's about respecting history and maybe questioning our list just a little bit.
There are some people who just like to light fires. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, who would that be?
Including the Windy City fasting guru, teen idol, and voted most humble by his schoolmates, Mark.
Wow,
Torres.
That's an intro.
Yeah. Mark.
Is it my turn to talk?
You can.
Can I just say, I'm never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert. I thought I'd just rickroll you guys since I'm trolling you all week.
Love that.
Wow.
What are we talking about right now? I didn't even hear what you guys said.
Now that
What'd you say?
you've poisoned the well with Rick Astley, I'm sorry. Just yeah.
You said Astley. Is that
That might be the first time I've ever heard Tom curse.
Yeah.
But it happens. I know Adam's out there as well. And Mark,
Yeah.
you know, obviously you were not able to make it last week. You were apparently at a Chicago Bears game. Hopefully it was a lot of fun for you. But I know you listened back. You listened to the list. You were right in the middle of all the exchanges this week and the controversy, so to speak, with the list. Kind of let's hear it from your point of view. What did you think of the list, and what'd you think of the past week of reactions?
Let me say this. I participated in the list, and we thought it was going to be easier than it was, and it's hell. This list is absolute hell. And I only want to speak, and frankly, from 30 to 50, the whole thing is difficult. And we haven't even, when we get to the top 10 or 15, so the fans should know, we have not agreed at all on the top part of the list.
Right.
But the bottom part of the list is still a mess. And where we got the most heat, frankly, we got the most heat on Larry Chesbrough being at number 50.
The first one.
Now, go ahead. Oh,
Yeah.
from number 50.
Yeah, from number 50.
50.
Yeah.
And let me just make a quick point about it. I saw Larry Chesbrough play. He's a maestro. I mean, in terms of raw skill, Larry Chesbrough could be in the top 15 of this list. He's an absolute phenom when it comes to physical ability. But a lot of people didn't make this list. Let's talk about Mark Crowell, Trevor Park, Terry Rue, okay?
Wow.
Martin Luther King, Princess Diana, Scott Baio. They didn't make the list. So you got to remember, of course, Joni loves Chachi fame. Everybody knows Scott Baio. So you got to remember that Larry Chesbrough at number 50, he jumped a lot of incredible people there's a lot of people that didn't make the list. Larry, a lot of people will wonder why Larry's at number 50. They are wondering why Larry's number 50. When we get higher on the list, it's going to make some more sense. The eyeball test, Larry's a phenom, and it's amazing. He's an amazing player. That's where we got the most heat. I actually had Larry higher on my list, but I'm going to be honest. He wasn't a ton higher. He was higher, but anyway, we did this in collaboration, and that pretty much is where the story ends. When we finish this list, people are going to be pissed off. There's going to be some 20% of people that are pissed off.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. We did our best.
All right. Yeah, those are good odds. That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Well, even though Mark likes to start fires, we do have someone here who joins us on a regular basis who loves to put them out. And that would be our own Adam Gilson from Ventura, California. Hello, Adam.
Yeah, when this list is over, I'm going to be the most pissed. Just so we're that out there. But anyways, and I got to make this connection here, because this is something, and both of you have already, Mark and Jim, you've nailed it here. Obviously, the most important part about this list is to generate conversation, to generate the compelling conversation that comes from asking ourselves and looking at the history of the last 40 plus years, where does everybody fit? How do they fit? Why do they fit the way they fit? And what's really interesting about that is so much how it parallels and ties into what's been going on the Inside Foos TV Facebook page. And the Inside Foos page is because there's this conversation that's going on, right? Mark and Clay have been involved in it, talking about points, talking about ranks. What does it all mean? It's all arbitrary. What does it mean? Does it reflect the tournaments? Does it reflect a broken system? What does it all mean? And we have to have those conversations the same way we have to put a top 50 list together and have those conversations. And, again, I pushed for Princess Di. I pushed real hard. You saw the mail-in thing that it was just me, and I was just texting
her
Jim.
career was cut a little short, is why I left her off my list. I did have Scott Baio at number 52, though.
Yeah.
And we completely cut Prince Andrew, too. So, there's that.
And those are both great points those guys made. And the one thing it's allowed me to do, and I think everyone who is involved with making the list and then listening and watching this list as it unfolds, is that we're getting a chance to look back at history as well and really illuminate some of the players maybe that we've forgotten about, or maybe we don't pay enough attention to, players who were in their era the best of the best. Whether or not that a player from the 1970s, from 1974, could beat someone from 1999, it's kind of irrelevant. It's not what it's about. But it's given us a chance to really focus in on the history of the sport. And it's been a lot of fun doing it, and it's been very difficult. And again, the NBA went through this. Major League Baseball goes through this when they release these top 75, top 100 lists. there is so much controversy, and there's always going to be. It's just how it is. It's the nature of it, because it's not like we can use math for all of this. Some of it is strength of era. Some of it is the eyeball test, right? Obviously, when you have multiple world championships, that certainly is a big number. That brings some math into it. But the rest of it, like Adam says, is kind of arbitrary.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll say one last point to put a bow on this. You look at any sport, and the modern player is physically better armed, has better nutrition 9 out of 10 times, but also has the benefactor of all this work that people did before him. They learn the modern player has the benefit of having a skill set that's probably much higher. So let's talk real talk. It's a good expert on Tornado versus a good 70s TS player, skill for skill. The Tornado player is probably going to have a lot more skill and brute ability just because of, I mean, a 70 player is going to see a slingshot for the first time. If we go back in time, it's going to be like, what the hell is that? It's crazy what you're doing. So when you compare eras, you really can't. It's not an apples to oranges. It's an apples to oranges comparison. So
or a rollover for that matter in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah. Building. I love that point though, Mark, about building on what, you're building on what they did back then, and a lot of it's derivative, of course. The game is still played basically the same way, the American style of play. But again, the benefit of building and standing on the shoulders of those who came before them. And that's a great point.
Yeah.
And just to that, add one little thing about that, something I've been thinking about a lot lately, that the factor that we have now in the last 15, 20 years that we did not have back then in the 70s, 80s, second generation Foosers, potentially third generation Foosers.
Yep.
It makes such a huge difference to be on a table that young and being told people that already have the knowledge, the ability.
Right.
So how that's incalculable.
Yeah, great point.
You know what I mean.
No, it is true, and we're seeing this more and more often. Of course, the top players that we're seeing, of course, at Worlds. I mean, it's amazing. Worlds, and of course in Colorado, Sullivan Rue and Sammy DeJohn. I mean, they're two great examples right there.
Yeah, and there are many others, especially this year, as each tour stop is kind of brought to light a new young star, and it's really been a lot of fun. Hey, a couple of other things before we enjoy a cold beverage, Tom.
Yes.
Inside Foods is involved with the South Florida Foosball Club in promoting an event that's going to take place in the middle of February. I think it's 18th through 20th. And Mark's going to speak on this a little bit. He's really been instrumental in helping to shape this event and build off of something that he did 17, 18 years ago. Down in Florida, the Thunderdome Limited event, February 18th through 20th. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know this is kind of your baby. You and, of course, Tommy Brewer of the South Florida Foosball Club putting this together. But talk a little bit about it.
Yeah,
so really cool.
This is my baby. So if anyone's listening, and at some point you'd hear about it later, I threw this format tournament 3 times in 2003. It's twice in 2004 and once in 2003. And I did a pilot for it, and then it built up to something, a tournament called the Iron Man Invitational. And it's a limited event, so it's a pre-registration event. It's limited to a set number of teams, and you cannot enter the event after that. It's a high stakes event, and it's an event that tests all your skills and everything about your game. And there's one winner that wins this event. I don't want to get into the hair split on the detail now, because we're going to release how the format is played and how the event operates. You'll be excited to hear that an 18-year-old, and maybe 17 at the time, Tony Spredeman, who's joining us later, took second in this event.
Ooh.
He's on there. Lewis Cartwright beat Tony by half a point. And the reason why Tony lost this event by half a point is because he either went out in 2 or out in 3 in one of the events. And it's because a 17 or 18-year-old Tony had a really crappy goalie game. So in one of these events, your goalie game gets tested. Now, I have no doubt that if this event was played again, which, by the way, it is going to be played again, there will be a Pro Master version of this event next year. And I'm certain Tony's going to play in it. And I would put, not pandering, because Tony's going to be joining us later, but I'd put all my money on Tony now, because he is 10 times the defensive player and 10 times the goalie that he was back then. But bring this back, go ahead.
I just had to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but just in Tony's forwards defense in that event, maybe he was just nervous.
Well, I think it was like 6 months later he won his first Open Singles World Championship, by the way. So he was a beast.
No, not Tony. No, his forward and the designated.
Oh, was that you?
Oh,
Yeah, pretty sure it was
Oh
me.
my God!
Oh.
How ironic! I didn't remember
Really?
that. Well,
Is that? I don't know if that's irony.
well, did you win? Irony for Iron Man. Did you? I don't think you guys won a match. I think you guys went out in 2 and designated, if I remember correctly.
I don't
Did you
remember.
win? Well,
I just
whatever
remember
it was horrible.
Really.
Yeah.
To bring this back, and so we can move forward with the great show we're going to have tonight. This event they're throwing in the South Florida Foosball Club. I have not wanted to hand off the keys to this domain for 18 years. I just haven't wanted to do it. I've retired it because I was too busy and I didn't want to throw another one. People have been asking me to. People asked me for 10 years to throw this event again, and they stopped asking. South Florida Foosball Club is such a great group of guys and gals down there running a club. They asked me, they said, hey, we want to throw an event. I said, you know what, I'll tell you about an event and I'll trust you guys with it because I believe in you and you guys, what you guys are doing. And they ran with it. We're doing it. It's going to be a complete monster. And then we're going to throw the Pro Master one. We're going to talk about this more in the coming weeks, but this is an event you don't want to miss.
Awesome.
It's going to close after 32 teams. And I believe that registration will be open no longer than 2, maybe 3 days max.
That sounds about right. Yeah. 64 players. Big money, limited, no pros, right? It's
Right.
no pros or above.
Huh.
That sounds really cool. I can't wait to get down there just to get out of the cold of Colorado in February. It sounds pretty good to me.
Right.
So heading down to Miami is going to be a lot of fun. And one more note before we enjoy a beverage. A new release coming up tomorrow at InsideFoos.com, the 1999 Tornado World Championships, which was Frederico Lignon's first ever singles world title.
Oh.
And some other great matches. I think there's 14 or 15 matches from that year and some really great stuff, which takes the Inside Foos collection now up to over 1,500 videos.
1,500.
Eventually, I think, Mark, I think you'll agree, we'll have more than maybe 4,000 videos as we continue to grow and evolve and add videos both from live events and from the archives as well. So
that's awesome.
Check it out at InsideFoos.com. Some great stuff uploading tomorrow.
So we can't be remiss here because, of course, Mark this week has been lighting fires, but the person holding the match and tossing the gasoline is Clay Toomey from Dallas, Texas. Hello, Clay. Are you with us?
I am definitely with you. What's up, man?
Yeah, no, just wanted to see how you're faring because, of course, this last week there's been a lot of conversation going on, especially on Inside Foos TV, the Facebook page. Care to
call
chime
it as
in?
much conversation as I would just calling it people not knowing what they were talking about, and then you know us informing them on how it is. You know,
setting them straight.
Yeah, I call it more. It's more educational than conversational.
Can we call upon you later to talk more in more detail about that? Because I think
Tom, I'm very shy and I'm not comfortable sharing my opinions very often, especially when they're completely contradictory to yesterday's opinions. But I'm always down to try.
Okay.
Always down.
Clay brings a certain element to this show, doesn't he? He goes places none of the rest of us are quite willing to.
I've been places that some of you
are not willing to go to. By the way,
that's a great point.
Well, let's not get into the ins and outs of that right now, but maybe down the road.
Yeah.
But no, the other thing though is Clay's arguments are always backed by numbers and by facts, and you got to admire that.
Well, indeed.
Let me qualify that. Hold on a second. Whoa,
don't qualify anything. There's the voice of foosball has spoken. So there's nothing to clarify there. Okay, the man said what he said.
I will tell you this: Clay and I have some things in common, by the way. And one thing that Clay can do very well, and whether it's for the same reasons I do it, he can be contrarian just to be contrarian. And it's not like Clay's not speaking his mind. It's not like he's trying to be not necessarily. But I think he kind of is. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. There's a part of Clay that enjoys being a little bit of an antagonist. He likes it a little bit.
I
don't
think
know
so.
about all that.
Give me a break.
I'm only disagreeing because you're just a Clay.
There you go.
He's
doing it right now.
He's doing it
right now. Yes, he's doing it right now.
Calls are coming from inside the house.
Take control of the show, Tom. It's that time.
Think,
take control.
I need to really get into control with a nice cold beverage for sure.
What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA.
Pray tell, Mr. Stevens, what are you partaking of this evening?
Tom, I'm going to break tradition tonight.
What?
I am not having an IPA tonight. I'm
No,
not going to have
on.
one. I am not going to have an IPA. Instead, I am going to have a Jubilee Ale out of my favorite brewery, or one of them up there in Bend, Oregon.
Jubilee Ale?
Brewery. It's a festive winter ale. Jubilee Ale is one of the oldest seasonal beers in the Pacific Northwest and continues to attract new fans each fall and early winter. It's only released during this time of the year. It's brewed with a malt bill of Crystal, Extra Special, and Carapils malts. and roasted barley to bring forth a robust malt character of toffee and dusted cocoa. The use of Bravo, Cascade, Delta, Tettnang,
Cocoa?
and East Kent Holdings hops brings forth holiday spice notes.
Wow.
Jubilee Ale sits at 6.7% ABV and 65 IBUs. Let me have a taste of this.
Sounds like fruitcake in a can.
It's very hoppy. I'll tell you now, and we're not going to get into fruitcakes right now, but it's very hoppy. But it also tastes a lot like almost a porter or a stout. It's like a dark ale. Very much perfect for the holiday season.
Wow.
It sounds like a fruitcake on a mic, by the way. But anyway, keep going.
I've been
Adam,
called worst. Mark.
rescue us.
By you.
Adam, what are you drinking? Please.
Well, I learned my lesson last week, and this time, instead of buying a 6-pack, which I still have 5 of those beers sitting in my fridge, to figure out where to hoist them off at, I got just like a single can. And it's a big can, but it was cheap, so I got it. And it's continuing. I'm trying to find something in California I like. And this is a St. Archer, California Brewing Company. It's their Hazy IPA. It just says Hazy IPA. And there's a description on the back. I didn't actually look when I picked it up. It says, St. Archer Brewing Company was founded on a unique strain of creative talent, world-class brewers, artists, musicians, surfers, skateboarders. Good gosh. They're not even talking about their beer. They're talking about this is such a California pretentious. This is going to be terrible. I can just feel it.
I love that you have bad beers all the time, dude.
Yeah, right.
Actually, this is good.
Well, it's out of San Diego. It's out of San Diego, California.
Yeah, it's not
zero for IPAs.
It's not knocking my socks off like some of the other ones I've had, but I mean, the bar was set so low that it's in the ground from last week. So
ground.
I like this. Thank you, St. Archer.
Well, I have to say that this week I decided to choose an IPA for my local mercantile. This one is in honor of our guest tonight because he loves heavy metal music. So this one is called Wall of Sound. Wall of Sound from Brick City Brewing in Little Ferry, New Jersey. It's a 6.4 this week, so I'm not going to be dancing on the ceiling by the end of the show. But, let's give it a try nonetheless. This, again, is Wall of Sound. There is the sound, and here is the taste. Oh, yes. Sorry, Adam, but I like this. I like this one.
Does it have a specter of a good flavor?
A specter of good flavor. It's lots of hops, but it's also...
You're a radio guy. You have to get the...
it's I got to try another taste or two. My goodness. It's let's see, 6.5%. It's India Pale Ale. They don't really have any slogans on here. Just Wall of Sound, Brick City Brewing.
Yeah, well, it
probably speaks for itself.
Specter, right? Phil Spector is Wall of Sound.
There you go.
Beatles.
Absolutely. Not so much the Beatles,
right.
but
okay, whatever.
All right, let's be bored by what Mark and Clay are drinking now.
Mark, what are you guys doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, so honestly, I grabbed a bottle of Fiji water that was sitting here. I won't drink it. It's been sitting here too long, and I'm just not going to lie to you. It's been here for months, and I don't think it's bottled in Fiji anyway. So I'm not drinking anything, you guys.
Nothing?
Right.
A zero. Okay.
No,
well,
I have nothing.
All right. You can set fires, but you can't drink beer. All right.
No.
Whatever.
Sorry.
And Clay, what pray tell?
First of all, how dare you call my drinks boring when IPAs are literally the pumpkin spice lattes for old white guys.
What's up, dude? What's up, pumpkin spice latte for old white guys?
Hey,
I'm
wearing my
I'm sipping on the tears of every expert rated foozer in the Western Hemisphere.
Dude, you're an animal, dude. You're an animal.
I love it.
These are human beings, Clay.
And water.
Well, we do have to propose a toast with the tears of experts from all over the country and Wall of Sound and a few other IPAs that we've been quaffing. We have to mention our... What?
Dude,
we have
I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if that means what you think it means, Tom.
It does.
Quaff.
It does.
You can quaff.
I think he used it
does.
perfectly.
He's using
it. All right.
Everybody, you got to up your vocabulary game. He's
Mark,
all right. Keep
man,
going, Tom.
He's
Keep
8
going.
years old. What can I tell you? So anyway, our honor group of the week, we want to salute the South Florida Foosball Club, of course.
Yeah.
because of
Love
their
those people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course
Big
that's
fans. Here's to you guys.
Yep,
Also,
we're
but
looking-
also experts in singles like Clay. What's up? Hey,
oh.
what's up, pumpkin spice beer guys?
Mhm. Well, yes, I think that we have delayed the inevitable here because we have a lot to get to tonight. We want to look back and reminisce with great moments in foosball history. This is a FoosTalk Live Flashback.
It takes a lot of effort to do the things that he does on a foosball table. Spredeman bounces it off the wall into the goal. It is world championship point for Tony Spredeman. Big shot here for Ryan, and he's going to shoot the snake shot. Blocking it. Poking it home. It's 4-3. So Ryan going for the snake shot for the first time in the match. That is his A shot. And is it a matter of too little, too late? It is championship point for Tony Spredeman, and he can close it out right here for the 2015 Tornado World Singles Championship. Tony Spredeman chokes it home, and there it is. Tony Spredeman holds off Ryan Moore in 4 games in a second set to win the 2015 Tornado World Singles Championship, his second Open title of the weekend.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's FoosTalk Live. 2015 Tony Spredeman singles title. Wow, great stuff. So
well, and the thing is, it was the first of 5 in a row that Tony won, starting in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. Nobody has ever come close to doing this. It was an amazing streak for a guy that I think most of us understand is the greatest singles player I think we've ever seen.
Right.
And that was the first of 5 back there in 2015.
Yeah, really impressive. But it's great to reminisce. Of course, we'll be talking about Tony's career of late and what he's been up to. He's been globetrotting, and he'll talk to us about even visiting the Vatican this evening when it comes to our special guest. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, the controversy continues to rage over last week's list. So we'll continue with that. I wonder how people are going to take this week's list, Jim.
Well, we'll see. Of course, hopefully they want to talk about it because that's what it's all about. Let me go over last week real quick. Starting at number 50, it was Larry Chesborough who tied at number 50 with Eddie Gartman. Don Swan at 49. Ronnie Nevoy was number 48. At number 47, it was Liz Hill-Moore. 46, Steve Biney. Kerry Walliger was at 45. Gary File, 44. Number 43 was Don Shalafou. 42, Gus Trevino. And 41, Kevin Keeter. And we'll open up tonight with number 40 as we count down to 31.
Any other comments from the gallery? Mark, Adam, Clay?
No, I think I've already said what I had to say about it. These are going to be difficult.
All right. Okay.
There's a subjectivity to it, and we tried our best. And no matter what, no one's lists were identical. And we have the most raging debate still ahead of us, which is like the top 10 or 15. So no one's going to be happy, and we're gonna have fun with it at their expense.
Nice. Well, here comes here.
Real quick before we launch, tonight's list of 40 through 31 includes 5 players from the state of Colorado and 3 from Texas, as the cream really begins to rise to the top, as we begin to count down, including tonight 3 non-Hall of Famers in our 10 players tonight.
Really?
What does that tell you?
Very interesting. 3 non-Hall of Famers. Okay. Very cool.
Let's do this.
Adam, you've got your chance before we dive in.
No, let's go. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Throughout the history of professional American foosball competition, the top players have waged war. Many have tried, and many have failed. Inside Foos and Foosball Radio unite to bring you the names of those who stand above the rest. The greatest players in American Pro Tour foosball. From the 70s, 80s, 90s to present day, we are proud to present the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Pro Tour History. This list has been compiled by experts hermetically sealed in a mayonnaise jar, locked in the vault of the firm Stevens, Torres, and Gilson, and hand-delivered under armed guard to the studios of FoosTalk Live. Each Sunday until January 2nd, 2022, we will reveal the top 50 foosball players in American Pro Tour history. Tonight, we present to you the players ranked from 40 through 31. We continue with the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Tour History. Coming in at number 40, Bob Maloney.
Yeah, Bob Maloney out of the state of Colorado, a guy we've had on the show, a guy we've talked about extensively. I had a chance when putting together this bio to really look closely at this guy's career. He built an extremely impressive resume in the late 70s and into the 1980s. He was a part of the Arapahoe Sports Center team. I don't know if you guys have seen, hold on, clear the voice real quick. All right, I'm back.
It's the Christmas ale. It's the Christmas ale you're drinking. That's what that is.
But I don't know how many of you have seen that 1979 picture, right, of the Arapahoe Sports Center team, right, where you've got Todd Lafredo, you've got Bob Maloney, you've got Bob Gibson is in there, Tom Spear, of course, and Mike Bowers. There's
William Dafoe's in there, but keep going.
Yep, William Dafoe, Jesus, I think in one movie, but there were 7 of them in the picture. And 4 of them probably, 3 of them are in the Hall of Fame, and maybe 4 of them should be, because you look at Maloney's career. Broke through in 1979 with a second in open doubles with Todd Lafredo at the $50,000 Syracuse event, and a third in open doubles with Bob Gibson at the 40K Bay Area Open up in Oakland. Also was second in open doubles at the 80 World Championship West with Tom Spear again. So he was playing with Spear extensively, sticking with that Arapahoe family. But he won open singles at the 1980 LA Open, an event I was at. 1981, he lost to Johnny Horton in the World Championship singles final, the very last tournament ever held on tournament soccer there in Chicago, the one that really rang the death knell for tournament soccer. But it was Maloney finishing second to Johnny Horton. Then he moved to the Dynamo Tour. A lot of the TS players did not. He did. Was third in open singles at the 82 World Championship on Dynamo, finishing behind, by the way, Tom Spear and Todd Lafredo. So the top 3 finishers that year were all from the Arapahoe Sports Club. How about that? Won the 84 Nationals, open doubles with Dave Gummison, played with Gummison, won the Nationals. He was the 84 Goalie of the Year and Sportsman of the Year. And if you've met Bob, you know why. A class act all the way through. And then in 1987, got his world championship playing with Lafredo on Dynamo, won the Dynamo Open Doubles Championship at the 87 event where you had both Tornado and Dynamo, then continued to play well late into the late 80s and early 90s with several top 3 finishes before he finally retired in 1994. But one thing you look at, we're going to say this a few times tonight, you look at this kind of career, guys, and you kind of say this guy probably should be in the Table Soccer Hall of Fame. Bob Maloney at number 40.
Let me take a quick word about Bob before we get to the number 39 guy. Bob, so hundreds of people play dozens of tournaments every single year, and whatever the 3 to 5 big events every single year for years, and they never win an event. Bob Maloney, I think he was the Nationals this last year. It was either Nationals or Texas State, but I don't know if he was there. He came out and he won a draw your partner at a major. And it's like a testament to the greatness of these guys that have it in between the ears and can still like make the big block and make the big clear or make the smart decision. That's a maestro. I mean, come out of nowhere, is retired for 25 years and just like win a draw your partner at a major is not a joke. So Bob Maloney, man, one of my favorite guys all time. Love it. Great at, and it could be argued, could be higher, but that's all I have to say about Bob. Wonderful.
And I just want to interject some foosball memorabilia information about Bob Maloney real quick. When did you say he won the Worlds in 87? Is that
87? Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so this is cool. So I'm holding the Table Soccer Digest from 1986. It was, I believe, this was the Table Soccer Hall of Fame, the first year they had it, and that's what this magazine has in it. But in it, there's a bunch of top. There's a table soccer player poll and statistics that goes from tournament soccer to Dynamo, all this other stuff. And it's the players poll for the top 5 this, top 10 that players at the time. And on Dynamo, the team of Maloney and Gummison was considered by other players the 3rd toughest team to play against. Not surprising, and this was before his Worlds run. So yeah, this is it's great to see him on this list.
He just messaged me. He won the Draw Your Partner at the Nationals.
Yeah.
And one thing about Adam Gilson, if you love foosball memorabilia and like nostalgia, Adam Gilson is the person you want to take hostage and raid his house and steal all his shit.
No.
'Cause he has all kinds of stuff in his house. He's got amazing treasure trove.
Just
So
don't
call
dox
him.
me.
I'll give you a cell phone number. Call him. He has everything you want.
I think I have his address if you just want to head on
I'm
over.
gonna go put some plywood on my front doors and windows. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
And on we go. Coming in at number 39 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Foosball Players in American Tour History, Brandon Moreland.
Yeah, Brandon Moorland. You know, we always tend to forget about Brandon Moorland. It just happened to me numerous times. Right? Again, maybe the most underrated player in the history of the sport. And he came in on all of our lists, you know, in this 35 to 40 range, which I think for a guy that really has had, you know, an interesting career, a very successful career in the last few years, has had an incredible career. But he absolutely deserves to be in this position at number 39. Out of the state of Texas, second generation player. You know, we all remember Brandon as a very young man starting in the late 90s, early 2000s, very talented, very athletic. You know, he has that very short backswing on his shot, but still generates an incredible amount of power behind it, a very versatile player. And one of the game's best goalies I think we've ever seen on the American Tour. Certainly a top 6, 8, 10 goalie I think ever on the American Tour. First saw him back in 1998 when he won the 17 and under title, doubles with Kevin Walker, another really good player, and also won the 35 and 17 event that year. You know, his father, Scott Moreland, a longtime player. All of us kind of know Scott. He still shows up at tournaments here and there, but really stepped it up a level when he and his partner, Michael Archer, won back-to-back Texas State championships in open doubles in 2002 and 2003. And they also finished second. And Mark and I think we've talked about this match. They also took second at the Hall of Fame Classic in 2003 when they were, you know, quite simply during those years, one of the best teams on tour in an era that was really loaded with great players, great teams. He then won 6 straight Texas State Open Doubles Championships with our guest tonight, Tony Spredeman, from 2008 through 2013. And then a step back from the Pro Tour, you know, during the 2010s a little bit, but still seemed to reach open finals at Texas State. He wouldn't play anything else through the entire year. He'd show up, he'd take second in open singles at Texas. Then came back on a regular basis in 2018 and promptly finished third in open doubles with Blake Robertson. And also took second in open singles that year at the World Championships, the Tornado Worlds, to Tony Spredeman. And then in 2019, of course, we all remember the incredible performance. He and Tommy York Jr. winning the Open Doubles World Championship. And what a lot of people don't remember is he also took third in open singles that year. And then Tommy Jr. and Brandon came back to finish second this year at the World Championships. And then just a few weeks ago, playing the forward position, he and Trevor Park bring home the Colorado State Open Doubles Championship. But absolutely, especially since returning to the Pro Tour back in 2018, he has been one of the top 3 or 4 players on the American Tour, and a guy I think that eventually we will see in the Hall of Fame, another non-Hall of Famer on the list, only because he's not eligible yet. But at number 39, we celebrate Brandon Moorland.
You know, Brandon is like Peter flippin' Parker. Like he's like so unassuming and because he's not loud and abrasive and he doesn't have a mouth and he's not very temperamental. He does end up getting this overrated, unnoticed. But this is a guy who at one point he was like one of the highest ranked players in Tornado because he was playing tons of events and always placing really, really high. He's a great, great talent. I think his win at Colorado State is a massive stamp. It's a massive feather. Not that open doubles with Tommy York isn't, and that his Texas State championships with Tony isn't either. But it's a huge feather in the cap to see him come out with Trevor Park like that at 5 a.m. in the morning, with this pending threat in the winners bracket. Brandon Moorland is a top all-time player, and I'm excited that he was on all of our lists. I'm excited to see him here in this spot.
Yeah, looking at this Table Soccer Digest again, even though he was 4 years old at the time, he was still the number 3rd ranked goalie on Dynamo. Yeah. But that's a testament to how good that guy is. Jeez, and I'll tell you this, though, all semi-joking aside, because I did actually just scribble his name on there. There's something about that guy watching him, and you said it, Mark. This unassuming quality that he has, and I'll say this: this is the word. He's cerebral. He is like 500,000 pounds of brain, and you can just see it emanating off of him when he plays. There's just so many things going on, and all the thinking and stuff that's happening with him, combined with the physical ability that he has. And he has one of my favorite pulls to watch on the 2 or the 3, just because there's so little backswing. It's just a beauty to do. And I know he's been injured, and he's still making do with what he has. And that's what makes him a champion. And that's why he's on this list. So yeah, great. Well-deserved.
Now, the player coming in at number 38 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Foosball Players in American Tour History, Tina Wyatt.
Tina Wyatt, I think quite simply one of the 3 or 4 greatest lady players of all time. I feel like I probably had her at about number 3 on my list when we did the top 5 lady players, after Cindy had Lori Schranz, But the only woman to win world championships in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, with her last one coming in the year 2000 with Cindy Head. She broke through with a win at the World Championships in 1979, as she finished first in women's singles. That was a $250,000 tournament, 1979. 8-time world champion on TS, on Dynamo, and on Tornado. And also, maybe her biggest win ever. The only woman to ever win a major open doubles championship. And I said open doubles championship when she won the 1985 Nationals with Greg Jeep Perry. She almost tripled that year as well in 1985 at the World Championships, winning mixed doubles and women's singles and second in women's doubles. It's safe to say, I think, that she was the best lady player on the Dynamo Tour in that era, but also a great player on TS and Tornado as well. She tripled. Adam's got that book sitting there in front of him. That event, 1986 in Long Beach, the Striker Reunion event, which really was a star-studded event. Players from the 70s, 80s were there. The best players in the world were there. And she tripled, winning women's singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. Again, a top 3 or 4 all-time lady player who was inducted in 2010 into the Hall of Fame. I remember her speech well. It was one of the best Hall of Fame speeches ever. And unfortunately, we lost her just a couple of years after that. But it's coming in at number 38, well-deserved. One of the great lady players of all time, one of the great players of all time, Tina Wyatt.
Here's the player who's ranked number 37 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Foosball Players in American Tour History, Billy Sumption.
Well, apparently Mark and Adam stepped out. No feedback on Tina.
Sorry, I was waiting for Mark to go, and then he didn't, and then the music started, and
I don't want to I want to. Anyway, Tina's amazing, and yes, we could. If Adam, you want to continue to elaborate on Tina, or we want to go to the next player, good.
Oh no, we should probably move on.
Yeah.
All right. No doubt. I know you guys both had a great deal of respect for the great Tina.
For sure.
But we also have a great deal of respect for this guy coming in at number 37. Billy Sumption, a guy that out of South Dakota, later moved to Minnesota. But one of the true early legends of the sport, a pioneer player who really was one of those guys who helped to create the American style of foosball. Billy Sumption first played foosball in 1961. I'm not sure there's any player anywhere in America who played before that. That's about as early as I've ever heard for someone playing foosball. Played in 1961. He was also the very first player inducted into the Table Soccer Hall of Fame, again at that 1986 event in Long Beach, the Striker event run by Johnny Lyde, and Adam still has that magazine for that sitting in front of him. He and his partner Tom Hansen were dominant in the upper Midwest in the early to mid 1970s. And then in 1974, the historic tournament, Elitch Gardens, Mike Bowers has talked about it. I mean, it was really the first big world championship type event. He and his partner, Tom Hansen, finishing second in open doubles. And then he won a world championship in 1975 with another Hall of Famer, Karen Gilliland, at the World Championships in mixed doubles. He was a mentor. He moved to Minnesota and went into business with Tom Hansen, with Hansen Distributing. Up in that area, a company that distributed foosball players tables, among other things. But he was a mentor at that time to Hall of Famers Jim Wiswell, Mike Bells, Brent Bednar, as they were coming up in the Minnesota area. I first met Billy in Las Vegas at the Hall of Fame Classic, and he was so kind And I'd never met him before, and he completely knew of my work, was incredibly complimentary of what we had done over the years. And I continued to see him in Vegas each year. He'd always come. These for 2 or 3 years. He came for the Hall of Fame ceremony. He wanted to be a part of that. The last couple of times he came, he was in a wheelchair. His health was obviously not great. And then in 2013, I got a chance to spend some time with this legend of the game. And the way you looked at the way the other players, the other longtime players, the other veteran players, Dave Gummison and others, looked at him and the way they talk about him as a guy that really, obviously, here he is at number 37, right? But that year in 2013, I got a chance to spend a little time with him. He then went back home to South Dakota, and I believe it was about a week and a half later that he passed away. But Billy, again, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1986. Truly, when you talk about the greatest names from the early era, Billy Sumption's right at the top of that list. At number 37 on the top 50, Billy Sumption.
Yeah,
I'm
he
gonna
is.
defer to Adam.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead, Adam. No, it's you.
Okay. Yeah. No. So, I got a chance to talk to my dad, Terry Gilson, who worked with tournament soccer at the time. He was on the tournament, the running side, the operations side. He played as well, but he got to know all the players and so on. And he spoke nothing but high praises of Billy Sumption. He said he was always an enthusiastic player, and he was very flamboyant. And he was known, and I put him on my top 5, bar of any kind list when I first started joining you all here, because of his karate pull kick, where he'd finish it with his resounding key-op every time. But he was always, my dad said, he was always teaching, and he always did everything with a flair. And he was one heck of a promoter out of Minnesota. And my dad wanted to dispel a myth. Actually, he didn't want to, but he just told me this because I've heard this. This is one of the things that I've heard, was that the Foosball Man face was based off of Billy Sumption. My dad was one of the people that designed the man and did the plastic injection molding stuff. And it just was this odd coincidence.
Yeah.
Just coincidence. Yeah. But I mean, it's a cool myth. And, I'm willing to pretend I didn't say that. Let's just say it was Billy Sumption. So yeah,
Absolutely
again,
was.
glad to see him on this list. Mark had to step out and get a new box of LaCroix.
I see.
I'm actually going to defer to Adam on some of these that, frankly, I don't have the knowledge or the history with some of these players, and Adam's a better resource for it. So I'll let you know. I think Gil Jackson's not, well, sorry, no, Billy Sumption. I've heard the legend, and I'm ready to go to the next name.
Next, the player ranked at number 36 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Foosball Players in American Tour History, Gil Jackson.
Yeah, the great Gil Jackson, out of Colorado, of course. One of foosball's most potent goalies, a guy that is legendary for his ability to shoot the ball. And of course, as we've talked about on here, he shocked the world in 1977 when he and his fellow 17-year-old Todd Lafredo won the World Championship in open doubles in St. Louis. But he was a solid singles player as well. Had a couple of finals appearances at mid-sized events in Phoenix and Seattle. Won goalie war, as he should, at the only goalie war titled event ever held in 1979, the goalie war tournament in San Francisco. A guy that still is a legend, a guy that they say, if he had not passed away, unfortunately, in the early 80s after a motorcycle accident, would have continued to play and probably continued to have some success. Although another guy that we all know was devastated by the crash of tournament soccer in 81. One of the biggest stars of that era, master on the TS Tour from 78 through 81, and a guy still spoken of. And talk to Todd Lafredo about Gil Jackson. Talk to Mike Bowers about Gil Jackson. They'll tell you this was a great foosball player, an incredible goalie, but just a great all-around player. And he comes in at number 36, mostly for his abilities at the goalie position, but again, a great all-around player. That's Gil Jackson out of the state of Colorado.
So my friend and mentor, John Sneaky Jack Graham, who passed away last year, he was one heck of a goalie in his own right, and he placed in the top 3 or 4 worlds at tournament soccer back in the mid 70s. I always looked up to him as just being the most focused person that I could ever imagine, and he was. But he said that he would look at Gil's game and his ability to be in the moment. And for him, he said it was something he aspired to. And that's like hearing a cheesecake aspire to be a bowl of fettuccine Alfredo. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe you don't. maybe I'm just food
No.
driven. But anyways, the point is, for him to say that was the highest of compliments that I could imagine. And even though you out there don't know my friend Jack, that it was hopefully although that one foosball player that just does things in ways that you can't imagine. My friend saying that about this guy spoke all the volumes and all of, what I needed to hear for why he's on this list.
Moving on to number 35 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Foosball Players in American Tour History. Ken Olwell.
Yeah, and just one last thought about Gil Jackson. He was inducted into the Table Soccer Hall of Fame in 2008 as well. All right. Kenny Olwell, a guy we've had on the show, a guy who I consider one of my very best friends, a great foosball man, innovative foosball man. He worked for Tornado and helped to promote Tornado for a couple of years, and then formed a federation in the early 2000s. NATSA ran a couple of great super doubles events down in Austin, Texas. But he was also part of that incredibly strong Minnesota crew of the mid to late 1970s that has landed 6 male players in this top 35 of part of our list. He's at the lowest. There's 6 players in the top 35 who came out of the Minnesota program of the mid to late 70s. 5 of those guys played in what was called the Nut Goody high school program. It had like 10,000 players in the state of Minnesota and produced 5 Hall of Famers. Kenny was a super talent, smooth on the table, just athletic, great push kicker, maybe the best push kicker of all time. One of the few non-world champions on this list, but he finished second in a couple of the biggest tournaments ever held. In open doubles in 1977, when he lost to Lafredo and Jackson in the open doubles final. Also at super doubles in 1979. And these were monstrous tournaments, just huge multi-$100,000 tournaments. But also had a few wins in singles and doubles, and then came back after a long absence, about a 13-year absence. Came back in 1994 on Tornado when he was working for the Tornado Company. But he and his partner Kelly Parasita finished second in mixed doubles at the Tornado World Championships in Dallas, losing to Todd Lafredo and the late Tracy Hill. Again, a guy that was just a super talent. We talk about the eyeball test, right? You watch a guy, you look at the era he played in. There's a reason why he is here at number 35, despite never having won a world championship. And there's only a couple of people on this list who have not won a world title. Yet he was second at some of the biggest events. And when you watched him play, you said, wow, that guy's great. And during his career in the late 70s, he was considered by the rest of the tournament soccer crew as one of the top 5 players in the game. Inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013, it's Ken Olwell at number 35.
I got a quick couple remarks on Ken Olwell. So I was there in 94. I was there and I heard, and people whisper, because there was still there was a ton of people playing. There's Ken Olwell. And for me, these guys, I mean, I was a total nerd. I was a total foosball dork. And hearing the whisperings of Ken Olwell, for me, he was like a gunslinger. And I've told the story before. He was like a giant of the sport for me. And so I'm thinking, okay, I mean, this is pretty cool. I followed him around and I watched him slay the top. He was playing open mix with Kelly Parasita. I watched him slay all the top players in the world, slay them, like destroy them. The push kick. I mean, some guy we could give Jeep the best inside dink game of all time, but that long was ridiculously slow. I mean, it was sad. I never even seen Harley. It was a Harley Park. I never even seen him shoot a push kick. The story is that guy's got a blazing push kick. The most recent push kick you think of is like Frank Belleccia, and you got these weird push. Kenny Olwell's a different animal. You can look at Kenny Olwell's push kick and say, there's the 10,000 hours. It wasn't just that, though. It was the poise and composure on the 5-bar defense. It was the 5-bar passing, which was just, you could tell that the aesthetics of the game mattered to him. That guy's 5-bar looked pretty as hell. And he slayed people. I watched him get to the finals, and he was working the tournament while he was playing. And of course, Lafredo, who's like peaking in like 94, he beats him. But the eyeball test. And when you think about the history and the great finishes he had against the top players of the 70s, every single one of us, and Dave Gumison, who I don't know if we mentioned him or not, he had his list too. We combined all these lists and looked at Dave Gumison had Kenny Olwell right up there too. So Kenny Olwell, in my humble opinion, is great on this list, and he could fit in so many places on this list. I think I might have had him a little higher, but he's probably right where he should be. Ken Olwell is a maestro for me, and I'm happy to see him on this list.
Yeah, real quick, I agree with all of that. Everything you said, a great, Mark. I can't add more to that outside of this little tiny vignette of a story. When again, I was talking to my dad about these players, and I was like, what about Ken Olwell? He said, great guy, et cetera, everything you just heard. And he says, but it was weird though. And I said, what? He goes, well, one time Lee Peppard, of tournament soccer, he called me into his office, and Lee was there, and Ken Olwell was there. And my dad's like, "What do you want to do?" Because my dad plays fast. He's one of those fast, warehouse playing type guys. And Lee says, "I want you guys to play a rollerball." And then he goes, "Why?" And he goes, "I just want to see you guys play it." And so they puts $5 there on the table, does Peppered, and makes a play. Allwell beats him by a point, and that's the story. But I got to tell you, anytime my dad tells me outright that he got beat by somebody, I know they're good, especially if they're playing the rollerball thing. So yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad that he see him on the list.
Coming in at number 34 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Tour History, John Smith.
Yeah, one last thought on that as well. Adam's father had a nickname. He was called Fast Terry Gilson. That was his nickname, and that explains it. That's a great story. Coming in at number 34, John Smith, a guy that still is out there playing. And still, when you watch him play these days, I've seen him play at the World Championships a couple of times over the last few years, still has a lot of game. Out of the state of Texas, 3 of the players I think on our top 10 tonight are out of Texas. He and his brother Daniel formed one of the best tornado teams of the 1980s with open doubles wins at the 1985 U.S. Open and the 1985 Tornado World Championships. Also won the open doubles at the 1986 Tornado World Series event. In 1988, John finished second to Greg Perry at the World Championships in Dallas in open singles. And then in 1991 had his biggest accomplishment ever when he doubled at the World Championships, winning singles and winning doubles with fellow Hall of Famer, a man who was in our list last week, Kevin Keeter. When you watch him play, a pure Texas player, a guy that obviously shot the pull shot, had that Texas-style game, was ornery on the table and tough. When I first traveled to Texas in the early 1980s, I went back there for an event on Dynamo, and he showed up. And Dynamo wasn't his best table. He and his brother Daniel, though, we had a chance to play him in open doubles and lost to him, but barely. But it was still, what a competitor he was. Dynamo, not his best table. He was a tornado guy through and through. But he and his brother Daniel, certainly a legendary team from the 1980s. Also inducted into the Table Soccer Hall of Fame in 2011. Coming in at number 34 out of Texas, the great John Smith.
Yeah, and to that point, about seeing him play now, it's so fascinating to me to see players that have been playing for 10, 30 something years at this point, to get into the 40s with some of these players. And it just amazes me that even if they kind of lose a step or two, the fire and the intensity is still there. And watching him play definitely speaks to that point, which is definitely why he's here at this spot.
Next, the player ranked at number 33 on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Tour History, Tim Zeke Burns.
Yeah, the real Zeke, right, Adam?
Yeah.
Tim Burns, another guy that during that last half of the 1970s into the early 1980s was absolutely considered, a top 10 player for sure. And being a top 10 player on the TS Tour really said something. I think if you are a top 10 player on the TS Tour, you're absolutely a Hall of Famer, which he is. He was inducted back in 2012. One of 10 Colorado players in the top 50. Yeah, 20% of the players in the top 50 originated and were produced by the state of Colorado. Took second in 1978 at the $100,000 Chicago Classic in open singles, and then and won open singles at the 78 Indianapolis event and the $100,000 Super Doubles event. He won singles there. That Chicago Classic event, by the way, was kind of an event along with Super Doubles. There was no World Championship that year. Chicago Classic was kind of the World Championship. 1980. Won the Open Doubles East World Championship with Mike Bowers, and then won the World Championship playoff. There was a West World Championship that year in Portland, where I actually was there, and there was one in the East as well. Dan Kaiser and Rick Martin, who we may hear about a little later in this list, won the West, and Zeke and Mike Bowers won the East, and it was Zeke and Bowers who won the overall playoff that year. But another one of those legendary names. When your name is Zeke and you play foosball, and you know this very well, Adam, of course, you're somebody special, and he really was. So Tim Zeke Burns coming in at number 33, inducted into the Table Soccer Hall of Fame in 2012.
It's a leap back into the memorabilia corner. I've got this very yellowed tournament guide from May 1978. Great art on it, and on there it's got the Portland 50 Grander. And I'm looking at the championship singles, they beat open singles basically, and Tim Burns, his team name back when they used to have team names, which I really wish they should bring back again. But anyways, his team name was Weak Zeke, and he placed 5th at this tournament. But if you look at who's ahead of him, Dan Kaiser, Mike Bowers, and who's behind him, Doug Furry, and what do we got here? Steve Simon, Todd Lafredo. That's behind him. You can see the quality and the caliber of this player. So yeah, again, well deserved having him in this list.
Moving on to the number 32 position on the FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Tour History, Scott Weidman.
Mark, did you have a little something you wanted to say about Zeke?
Yeah, only because Mike Green, who's listening, told me that Tim Burns taught Tony Bacon how to pass on the Farwell series, a brush pass, which that's incredible praise, since Tony Bacon probably had the greatest 5-bar of the Dynamo era, like bar none, hands down, and also 2 to the 5, passing from the back on Dynamo.
No, he was innovative.
So,
He really was. Super talent, great talented player, no question. Yeah, that's good stuff. Number 32, and when I looked at tonight's list, I kind of honed in on this one. There's a lot to say here. Number 32, Scottie Weidman. Number 32, greatest player ever on the American Tour. He is not in the Table Soccer Hall of Fame. He's the highest non-Hall of Famer on the list, as he should be. This is a guy who won titles as both a forward and goalie, and broke through in 1991 in open doubles at the World Championships with Tom Spear when they finished second. Then went on to become part of the first team to ever go back-to-back at the World Championships when he and Lafredo won in 94 and 95. He and Todd also won the 95 Nats, by the way, the Nationals, without losing a game up in San Francisco. And that year in 1995, Scott Weidman actually won 3 of the 5 major open doubles titles that year. He and Robbie Mares winning Masters open doubles that year, and of course Lafredo and him winning Nationals and Worlds. It's second in open singles at the 1997 Tornado World Championships, losing to Tommy Atkinson, a legendary match. 1998, played forward and won open doubles at the Masters in a very deep field with Mike Bowers, who at the time was the oldest player to ever win a major title. I think he was something like 39, which was just ancient, right? And then in 1999, he was second in open doubles at the Tornado World Championships when Frederic Collignon and Todd Lafredo won their second. He and Robert Mares finished second. But you look at this resume, right? You look and how in the world is this man not in the Tornado or in the United States Table Soccer Hall of Fame? 2016, he comes back in 2016, and maybe you guys remember this. It's kind of a famous event. It was actually the year that Foosballers was recorded. Todd Lafredo ended up triple second placing that year. And one of those was a second place finish in open doubles with Scottie Weidman. And Todd had to play goalie in that entire event. He'd hurt his arm in singles, played goalie, Weidman playing forward. They reach the finals. They get all the way to the finals in open doubles. One of the most versatile players ever in the history of the sport, and an absolutely no-brainer for the United States Table Soccer Hall of Fame. It's got to happen soon, guys. Coming in at number 32, and I don't say this lightly, the great Scottie Weidman.
I got some things to say about Scottie. So Scottie and I were amateurs together, and Scottie Weidman, when he played with Spear, was an amateur in that open doubles final at the Worlds, and he had a shot to win the World Championship. And when he'd missed, and Spear was a psychopath, by the way, just an obscene, a master's master. The Spear was just insane. But you can't get to the finals of open doubles by yourself. Scottie was making blocks and scoring, and Spear called 3 timeouts in that match, and he had a technical call on him. Scottie had a shot, and when Scottie missed that shot, I thought, man, this is going to be it. This is going to be the end of Scottie's career as an amateur, having a shot to win open doubles at the Worlds. And Scottie aligned himself with that Colorado circle of great players. Here's the thing I love about Scottie Weidman. I am always more impressed with the player that does the most with the least. And quite frankly, Scottie, of all of us that were getting good at the same time, he had the least physical ability. He didn't have like the lateral speed, and he didn't have like the high powered 3-bar or 2-bar. What he did though is he had perseverance, mental toughness, and the will to win. And that is always more impressive than me. You know, I'm not just pandering because he's in here. He might be listening. Tony Spredeman's in here. People like to throw this word around like about like talent. And quite frankly, and Tony might agree with me, Tony is not the most talented of the circle of greats that Tony's in. He's not, doesn't have the lateral speed and the power of Ryan Moore, and he doesn't have all the physical gifts of Billy, and he doesn't necessarily have the hand speed, but it was the hard work, and it was the effort, and it was the will to win. If Tony has a natural ability, it's the mental toughness to persevere when the going gets tough and to execute when the pressure's on, and that's what Scottie Weidman had. Scottie Weidman has that. He like the lateral speed on the pull shot is almost laughable. But guess what? He'll tear you up on the inside and he'll hit that dead bar long when he needs it. That 5-bar defense, it's heart and it's mental aptitude and it's cognitive ability. I love Scottie Weidman because he's that guy who works so damn hard that he was going to beat all the guys that were physically better than him. Scottie Weidman for sure has got to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, somebody that's got a career as long as he has, there's obviously hundreds, probably thousands of stories out about him. And here's one of them. The first time I ever played him, it was in 2002 or so, and it was just, I think I was probably a rookie still, and it was a Hall of Fame Classic and Vegas, and I got a call to like table 78 or something. So I'm way back there in this open singles match, and it's Scottie Weidman. I don't know who he is. And I'm standing over there by the partition waiting for somebody to show up, and this huge puff of smoke, cigarette smoke, comes puffing out.
Is that what it was? Okay.
It was cigarette smoke, comes puffing out through this partition on the other side, where there was the empty ballroom area. And I hear somebody say, "Hey, kid." And I look, and I was like, "Me?" And it's Scottie, who I didn't know who it was at the time. And he goes, "Are you up here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No." He goes, "You want to just take the win, or do you want to play?" I was like, "Well, I want to play." And he goes, "Right on." Then he proceeds to kick my ass. But that's always something that I'm going to remember. Because I didn't even know what was going on. Like, is this guy being cool? Am I like about to lose my liver? Like, what's happening right now? In the context of life, I get it. But when your first introduction with somebody is like smog blowing a big old smoke ring out at you, and you're like, what the hell? So yeah, that's my Scottie Weidman story. Well deserved.
And how do you forget that?
What?
Yeah, Tony's got super fast hands, by the way.
He does.
Yeah, he does. He absolutely does. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I've never known Scottie to smoke cigarettes.
Well, it was a cigarette.
Jim, I'll agree with you right now. Tony's hands may be as fast as anybody's. Like everyone puts Fred as the bar, and then you get like Billy and Tony right there. Sure. But it's not like Tony didn't have to work hard. Tony has like
for sure.
Reaction.
You were spot on, I think, with all of that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
What do you say we wrap this up?
Yep. Rounding out this week's FoosTalk Live Top 50 Players in American Tour History at number 31. Steve Simon.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people think Steve should be at 31. I think, Steve probably thinks he should be higher, but I think 31 probably is a good landing spot for a guy that really was one of the very, very best of the early era. We're talking 94, 95, 96, right in there. This was a guy that was truly one of the greats. I've seen pictures 94? Of him.
74.
I'm sorry, 74, 75, 76. Thank you, Adam.
Yes.
What would I do without you? But yeah, so 74, 75, 76, the early days of tournament soccer. I mean, this was a legendary push kicker, a true professional. When you think back on those players from the 70s with the collared shirts and the slacks, he had this great push kick stance where he would kind of be on his toe and kind of this light kind of grip. I mean, he was a professional player, really had a great look. Won open singles at the 1975 International Championships, and then came back the next year in 76 to finish second in open singles. In 1977, got a world championship, his one and only world championship, although the international was kind of a world title as well, when he won mixed doubles with Gail Harding. He had 15 top 3 finishes on the tournament soccer tour with 7 wins. This is the guy we see every time we go down to Austin, Texas. He always shows up at the Bart O'Hearn celebration. Still very much embraces his role as one of the pioneers of the sport, one of the great early players. And the guy, and again, that's one of the things that has made this list so difficult is how do you factor in those guys who, like Sumption and like some of the other players who were the pioneers of the sport from 73, 74 through 75, 76. How do you factor those guys in? In some cases, early on, they were passing stopped balls, or they were sitting on the pull shot for 3.5 minutes. So even the rules had yet to be completely formed. So how could these players be? But again, a guy that was instrumental in the early creation of the American style of play. So coming in at number 31, the great Steve Simon.
Yeah, you said it, Jim. I mean, that is pretty much it. He was one of the pioneers of when it was the pre-Halcyon days. It was when everything was just starting to really click and kick. And speaking of kicks, his push kick reminds me of a story. And this really speaks to the kind of guy that I think Steve Simon is. Because every time I see that guy at foosball tournaments in the last 20 years, he'll come up to me and he'd say, "Hey, you're Adam Gilson." And I said, "Yeah." And I don't know why you know that. And he goes, "You're Terry Gilson's son." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's why." And he goes, "Well, at this tournament in Colorado once, I was having troubles with my push kick. And your dad, who shoots a hell of a push kick, told me that what I should do was put downward pressure on the back of the rod when I'm about to execute." And I said, "Okay, that's good." And he goes, and I don't know who he is at the time. I've heard his name growing up, but I didn't know who he was. And I talked to my dad afterwards because this was probably 90 or 2002 or so. And I looked into the history of what was going on. I was like, wow, what an amazing thing foosball is. And no wonder we all care about this so much, this interconnectivity that we all have with each other and these little moments that we have. We really don't know how we might affect the other one. And the fact that Steve Simon, who had the career that he had in foosball, remembered something like that happened at that point, 20-something plus years before that, is amazing to me. So, yeah, I'm glad to see him on this list.
Yeah, a man who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2001. Mark, yeah, I know you've met Steve at some of these Austin events
Yeah.
this year as well. And your thoughts on the great Steve Simon?
He reminds me of Gene Simmons. He's not Steve Simon, Gene Simmons. I mean that. He reminds me of a Kiss bandmate. These guys, man, like Johnny Lott has high praise for Steve. And even though they don't get along that well, and I don't mind just like throwing some gas on the fire. I mean, so high praise. He's a big fan of Steve Simon's in singles. That he would have been a dominant force. But to your earlier point, I think it's hysterical this era where like jarring the hell out of the table until it fell to pieces and sitting on the ball. If someone sat on a pull shot for me for 3.5 minutes. I guess if it was the 70s, I would do nothing but try to race it like they did. So those were the early days of antiquity in foosball. Someone had to raise the bar. Someone had to be a winner. And let me say one more thing. And this is funny because it leads into the conversations that are having on Inside Foos TV. Every single era only had a very small handful of winners. Whether it was Mike Bowers and that group and Wiswell and Furry, and then moving on to Bacon, and then you get like Lafredo, the 2 eras of Lafredo, and you get Rico. There's only a small percentage of guys, and when we talk about Steve, we're talking about the legacy guys that were the first true masters of the sport. He's got to be the winners. There's only a couple of winners in every era that dominate the championships. And it's true for every sport, by the way. There's thousands and thousands of golfers, and you can see the same 10 guys up there all the time, right? It's always the same guys. It's in football. It's the same football teams that win everything. Anyway, someone had to start the ball rolling, and he has to be credited for being the early champions of the sport.
For sure. And you make a great point. And it's something that all of us encountered when trying to put this list together is you really have to look at individual eras. And TS era really is maybe 3 different eras, really, when you break it down, and how successful, how great of winners they were during that period of time, going up against very tough competition. And so that's part of it. The equation is not perfect. The list is not perfect, but I feel pretty good about what we did tonight, guys, with number 40 through 31. I'll break it back down for you a little bit. It's Bob Maloney at 40, Brandon Moreland at 39, Tina Roton Wyatt at number 38, Billy Sumption at 37, Gil Jackson coming in at number 36, Kenny Olwell, number 35 on a list of the top 50. John Smith was number 34, Tim Zeke Burns at number 33, Scottie Weidman at number 32, and then Steve Simon at number 31. And what's neat is, a lot of these players, as we look at them, you can identify their individual eras. And there was, in some cases, no crossover whatsoever. Tim Zeke Burns never played in a tournament at the same time as Scottie Weidman, et cetera. Yet we still had to figure all of this out. And I think we've done a pretty good job so far.
This is it's a great list.
Looking forward to Tony coming in here and telling us what he thinks of some of these names.
Yes, absolutely. I was just
I wonder if Tony's going to be on this list at all. I'm guessing a good chance of it.
I'm curious. I'm curious. Well, it's just briefly here, guys. I'm looking forward to next week's list, and of course, the final part of this list will be airing January 2nd here on FoosTalk Live. So 2022. Yep, that'll be the top 10. So we're counting it down. Looking forward to the rest of that. But I'm in upstate New York, and it's always curious when I look outside and check the weather. Just to give you a forecast this evening. It's clear and 32 degrees. Let's find out what the weather's like in Florida this evening. Let's bring on our special guest for the evening. It's as we all know, Tony Spredeman. Hello, Tony.
Hey guys, what's happening?
Tony, what's the temperature in Florida tonight?
It's a little chilly. I think it dropped below 70 tonight.
Oh,
yikes!
Ooh, yeah, sweater weather.
But I got a hot tub in the backyard, so
nice.
I warmed up my bones and
awesome.
Happy to join you guys.
And are you having a highlight IPA tonight?
No, I'll tell you what. I know you guys love IPAs, but and I did for a while, and I still love the taste of them. But I started getting fat, so I got a big old beer belly about a year ago, and so I gave it up. So I just I drink vodka now.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, dude.
Mark wanted to hear that for sure.
A little more low calorie, apparently. But,
right.
Exactly.
No, great. It's the holiday season, Tony. At the end of really what has been kind of an unusual year of foosball as we come out of COVID and kind of get back into playing, try to feel normal out on tour and all of that. And I know, as someone who is so embedded in the experience of being a professional foosball player, it had to be, and we've talked about this before, of course, but coming out of what was the most difficult year for any of us, and then kind of finding some footing here in 2021. What was this past season like for you? Was it business as usual, or were there some new challenges you had to overcome?
To be honest with you, I feel like my game dropped off a lot. Before COVID hit, I felt like I was playing really strong. But coming back, I haven't been quite the same. And I mean, it's like you said, it's hard to pick up. And again, we all have the physical ability. Like I can still, execute my passes and shots, but it's that time on tour, going to tournaments. People always ask me, like, "Are you practice?" And I'm tournament practice. I don't practice at home. I'm tournament practice, and that's what I think separates me is that I hit more. Or before all this, I hit more tournaments than everybody, even the smaller ones I was going to. So.
Tony, I got to ask you, did you listen to our list? I want to know what some of your thoughts were, if you have some ideas on some of the names and where they were, or any opinions on the list.
Yeah, I listened. It's really hard what you guys are doing because of the different eras, so it's not really, I think there's so many good players. I don't know. I listen to like Tina's, when you're winning events in men's, you win an open in men's events, like that to me really stands out. There's not women that typically do that. Multiple world champion in, like you said, in every decade. That's, to me, she should have been higher on the list. And that was really impressive to me. And I don't even know the history of a lot of these tournament soccer players. So obviously, like Weidman, I have tons of respect for him. For a short while, he was in Minnesota, and I lived in Wisconsin. So I would get to play against him in my, regional tournaments and stuff like that. So first time I ever got to see Scottie, it was against Terry Moore. And Terry Moore was the number one player when I was coming up. Huge inspiration for me, and just kind of watching and his slow, methodical game. And I thought his 5-bar was amazing. First time I saw Weidman play him, he abused them. It was Weidman and Mose, and they beat up on Terry's 5-bar. Terry couldn't even get the ball on him.
Wow.
So it was, and I didn't know who Weidman was. That was the first time I saw him. Like, who is this guy? And he just kind of walks in with that swagger, and he's not like Mark was saying, he's not the most physically gifted, but he knows how to use what he has, and he's not afraid of anybody. He's a bully.
Yes, he's a bully.
He is a bully, man. And I love Weidman. I love his attitude, and I love his character. He's fun to watch, and I miss that. I miss that era of foosball. I to be honest with you, I think it's gotten boring.
Yeah,
we need those the Johnny Hortons and the Weidmans and the characters. Even Murray was, he was a bad guy. We need those villains in the sport. And to me, it's gotten stale.
I love that you're
Tony,
saying
that. Playing...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just a quick point. I want you to talk, Adam. I love that you talk about him as his swagger, because he had to, like, the mental toughness part. And I remember you, Tony, being 18 years old, and you're playing against grown ass men in open singles. And if you're gonna sit there and buckle, you're gonna look like a kid while you're getting beat. So you gotta like bring it. And not that you have to have like not that you have to be a douchebag, and don't get me wrong, you were, I mean, between you and Scottie, there's a gap. But to your point, that swagger matters in the sense that you can hold your head high and look someone eye to eye and go toe to toe with them, and he knew he was unarmed. He knew he wasn't armed with the same thing. But the way you just describe him beating up on Terry is hilarious. Anyway, Adam.
Yeah, I love how he called him a bully, because that is so accurate. That swagger, that bully.
Yeah.
I talked all about his record, but you fill in the in between the lines here with his attitude, with Weidman's attitude, and it was brilliant.
Right. No, that's very true. Even if he's sitting there smoking a cigarette behind the partition. But but Tony, I was just curious. You made a really interesting point about there not being any villains anymore, and you're 100% correct. And you've been playing nonstop for about 20 something years at this point. What do you think is? Why is that? Like, everybody is so freaking nice that plays for the most part. Like, I like all of them, and none of them are those ones that you're just like running to the table to be like, oh, what's going to happen here? I mean, I know Tommy's got his reputation, but he's like, the kindest person I've met. So what is that? Where'd all the villains go, Tony?
Well, I think they're just getting old, and there's no new players. I mean,
that's
I'm just being honest.
Answer.
It's a truthful answer. It's like they don't have time to fight, fist fight over foosball in a pool hall anymore. They're like 55 years old,
I miss those days of the
Medicare
at the pool.
Yeah, now they just sit around and drink IPAs.
Hold on.
I guess I guess when you're talking about villains,
thank you for tuning in tonight. That's the end of our show.
Maybe the only villain we've had over the last, Bobby Diaz, I suppose, was and again, this is an older gentleman, but maybe he's the one guy. Talk about you've battled with Bobby, obviously over the years, and if we're going to talk about villains, he's got to be at the top of the list over the last decade. But talk about how you would handle someone like Bobby Diaz, a villain.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I fairly do pretty well against Bobby. I don't really have to do or say anything. I just kind of, it's just not my style. Against any villain, doesn't matter who it is, I try and let my playing do the talking for me. I don't know. I wouldn't do anything differently towards him or anybody with that attitude, to be honest with you.
It's always ironic to me how guys like you and Adrian Zamora and other guys who are not the villain kind of miss or enjoy the antics, love the villain, but are not the villain themselves. It's always kind of a funny...
And I'd be lying if I said he didn't get under my skin, because he, when in the moment, and he'll make a block, call a timeout, do all the antics. It sucks. It's fun. It's fun for people to watch, but when you're actually the one getting blocked, it pisses you off. It sucks. It's a horrible feeling to have someone, taking the time and making you the vocal point, and everyone's looking at you, waiting for your reaction. They're waiting for some kind of drama. To be that person, it's not always easy.
There's a fine line with you, Tony. The fine line with you is, and We played the one time in 2017, and I blocked you pretty damn well. If I had admit the first match, and we were looking up at each other, and I was laughing. And but the fine line with you is this, and Billy warned me. He said, "Look, okay, there's a fine line where you can get away with it, and it's good, and you better ride that line, because once you go over the line, all you're doing is feeding the bear." So there's a line, right? You get the blocks, and you get in your head a little bit, and get you to block yourself a little bit. But there's a point where you don't have the rage you might have had 18 years ago, and you got to be very careful that you don't just pour gasoline on it and then you get obliterated. So I'll just say that about you specifically. That there's a little room, but not too much, because we don't want to.
Don't piss Tony off. Do not piss Tony off. We all know that.
That's not.
Well, here's the thing with Bobby Diaz and Mark Torres. They both have really good partners. They had really good partners all the time. So
you're welcome.
You think about Bobby, and he played his whole career with like Terry Moore and Ryan Moore, and then of course, I don't know, Horton in there maybe, but I mean, he's never had a bad partner, so he could sit back there and get drilled and still be in the match. So and like, to be honest with you, he can't win a local tournament to save his life around here. But it's a pretty brutal field of players down here.
You think?
But it's really tough. But I'm saying, without the help of Ryan or Terry in the 90s, I don't see Bobby doing much of anything. So, but he played his part very well, and he's obviously one of the greatest goalies of all time. But he can get away with talking and not letting his playing do the talking.
So Tony,
let me get a good enough partner, and I'll get the blocks on you, bro. I just need the right partner to score on your part.
Hold on, I'm dropping Bobby down on my top 50 list here. Hold on.
So Tony, maybe the point about not having any bullies is there's not enough. Of course, the players themselves don't want to be thought of as bullies. But back in the day, when you talk about TS and Dynamo, there was a lot more players showing up for a tournament. 1,000 people. It was tougher to stand out back in those days. Especially even with just talent, you had to have something else to make people watch you, like a Johnny Horton.
I just think the newer generation of players are softer. To be honest with you.
Okay.
Like, if you look at the second generation players, they're, a lot of the second generation players, they grow up going to tournaments, playing like in a semi-professional atmosphere, I guess you could say. But then you look at those older guys, and they grew up in pool halls, gambling and, so I think there's a certain grit to those old school players, and that carries over into mental toughness. They have to be able to, get jarred, or they, and deal with it, or they have to be able to, get reset on a big point, or, get beat up in the parking lot and be okay with it. I
remember, the early days when I'd be down in Houston or in Mississippi, and I always knew not only would I be commentating on matches, but I'd get to go out in the back parking lot and do a little fight commentary as well. But again, you make a great point though about it's just a different scene. It's the players are developed in a different way. Because it's legendary in many parts of the country. It was fighting time often in local DYPs, etc. So great point there for sure.
No, I know, Tony. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, that's fine, Adam. Go for it.
Okay. No, I was just going to ask. I mean, this is something I alluded to earlier, and you're just talking about the second generation thing. In my head, being a second generation player is an advantage. But what you're talking about almost sounds like it's a disadvantage. Obviously, in the villain toughness thing, but maybe there's also just showing up at these tournaments and being kind of like everything handed to you, that you become maybe not as mentally tough as you could be. Is that like a problem maybe going forward?
No, I think that's what makes foosball interesting. You have the second generation players who have all the physical ability because they've been exposed to the game at such an early age. But then you have the guys like, and this is how we got on this conversation, is like Scottie Weidman, who doesn't have necessarily the physical ability, but he's got that mental toughness and he knows how to grind and play good defense and get in your head. Bobby Diaz, same style. These guys they're like barroom players, but at the highest pro master level. And then we have, on the flip side, you have like you said, the kids, like look at Sullivan and look at Billy and all these second generation players who grew up around the game and, didn't know anything else, other than foosball, from those early years.
Weren't allowed to go to the pool hall and hang out and smoke. Basically.
And I was somewhere in the middle. I was a second generation player, but I would still, like, my dad and I would still go to the local bar and play tournaments together. And we would go to, we would travel. I grew up in pool halls myself. I took a Greyhound to St. Louis in maybe 99, 2000, something like that. Played at the Sports Center where Johnny Horton did the cage matches. Like, I don't know. Cool. I was a kid and I hopped a Greyhound and I drove, and I went to the pool hall and stayed in St. Louis for, I don't know, a couple weeks or a week or so. So I still kind of had a little bit of that old school experience, but I didn't have, and I still had the benefit of being a second generation player and exposed to the game when I was really young.
Yeah, which made a top champion like yourself.
I guess hopefully, maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Tony, this brings up a controversial topic, and I like to start fires and goof around and self-entertain, whatever. But I'm kind of bullish about this, and I want your opinion. So, I think that some of the rankings we have are misappropriated, in my humble opinion. I think that there's a lot of pros out there, and fine, we have pros, okay, but I think the title of master, for me, I know there's a point system and it operates the way it does, but for me, the fact that you could play pro events and win pro events and then achieve the rank of master without ever really competing against the top players in the game, and the fact that you can become a master without ever winning an open championship, that just bugs me. And maybe it's because I'm old. Maybe it's because I'm from an era where only open wins mattered and everything else was just kind of nonsense. But I want to, my argument is that you cannot be a master in foosball unless you win an open major championship. And it's a paper title if it's granted to you. That offends some people. It offends some of these guys that worked hard, that this is what they've known and they worked hard to do it. What's your opinion on that?
To be honest with you, I think I agree. Like, master has kind of lost its meaning, but I don't think it doesn't mean anything to really to be a master. I mean, I think it really got watered down because there were so many rankings. There was so many different divisions that you don't know what to really classify anybody. So I honestly, for the past 15 years, don't even care. I never look at like rankings. I don't care how many points I gain or lose. It doesn't really matter to me. To be honest with you, I like the way, like, the ITSF does their rankings, and it's very cut and dry. It's very black and white. You go to X amount of tournaments, you place here, you get this many points. You may be the best player, but you know what? If you didn't go to a tournament that year, then, well, you're going to drop in rank. You have to tour. Look at it. Look at any of the other big sports. Look at like golf. You have your tour players of the year, and those guys are the ones. The money leaders. They're winning tournaments. So to me, if you want to be the number one player, you got to get out there. You have to play tournaments. You have to win tournaments. Simple as that. So
there's a huge gap. I'm involved in some of these conversations about how the way the ITSF does things, and one of the arguments that is very positive for the ITSF ranking system is that when you have an ELO system, like the way the current system is, it discourages people from playing. And the ITSF guys will say that if you're in an ELO system, that if you're having a bad day or you don't have the right partner, you're not necessarily as motivated because of the way the scoring works. But the ITSF system compels people to play no matter what. Like, doesn't matter the situation, the circumstance, you play and you score points, and that's the way the system works. Is that what do you think that's true? Do you think the ITSF system also, and you're on the far spectrum, I don't even know if you're a good example, frankly, to ask about this shit, but do you think there's some truth to that? Do you think there's some truth to that?
I honestly don't know. You know what? Here's I want to expound on the whole master thing. Okay. I think the big problem is that there's no incentive to be a master anymore. That's why it's kind of lost its meaning.
Well,
Like,
it's lost its meaning for you. But let's imagine I said, okay, if you're a master, all your entry fees are free, and you get to start playing at 3 o'clock every day. I give you all these advantages because the only thing it means to be a master right now is your entry fees go up, and maybe you get to play in some kind of free scenario where you pay your entry fees back in certain tournaments. So
yeah,
you're right. There is no
well,
incentive except for higher entry fee. Go ahead, you talk.
yeah, and here's the thing. Like, for instance, I played a tournament in Louisiana, and the first place for open singles was a table, right? Well, first place in rookie singles was a table. First place in expert singles was a table. Except I had to pay more entry fees and had to go through a way tougher field. So it's like, well, why would anyone want to move up in rank? When I was a kid, it was a big deal to turn pro. I didn't want to sandbag, you know. It was, and they're little things. Like, remember they had the pits roped off, pros only. You couldn't play on, tables 1 through 5 or whatever. And I always thought that was the coolest thing. One of my biggest goals was to get in the master singles photo. When I turned pro, it was a big deal. I didn't ever think I'd win it, but I mean, just to be in the picture was like one of my main goals. So it's, again, there's nothing really, there's no reason to want to get good at foosball. I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, that's an issue. We've been suffering from that for last 5 or 6 years at least, and it's been tough. It's a tough egg to crack for sure. Of course, Mark and Clay Toomey have been doing their level best online in the last week, but I digress. So
you saw how hard I tried. They say like 3 words and put points in one of those sentences. That's all it takes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something. And we, a couple of weeks ago, we did this round table, this ask me anything sort of format where we touched on some things that we felt, at the end of this year when, everybody is sort of still, going through the euphoria of returning to tour and everything. And maybe some of the issues and some of the problems have been either overlooked or masked or just not acknowledged. But there are still some issues with the sport, and I think Tony makes a great point about about having incentives to becoming a master. Like he said back then, you got to play in master singles. You got to be called a master. There were benefits to it, and anymore there aren't. And maybe that's something we need to look at and address as well. And maybe a revamp of the system would take care of that sort of thing.
Where I'll challenge you on that, Jim, and even you, Tony, is a couple of guys just turned master. I won't say their name, and they posted proudly, which is fine. Like, I absolutely respect that they feel like this is a huge milestone and achievement in their career professionally. Posted on it, got accolades, whatever, social media recognition, love it. All that's good. Now, for me, who's not into the construct of this kind of facade of what it means to be a master, it is not a milestone or achievement for me. And I posted about this for years. I actually posted about it 20 years ago. And I said, it means nothing to me to become a master unless I win an open championship. There's no real milestone or reason. I got a higher entry fee. And I get to call myself
events,
fewer events. And I get to call myself a master. It doesn't really mean shit. So, like, win an open championship and you could call me a master. Until then, I could be a second or third place finisher, just like generations of pros, and I don't deserve the title of master. So I'm actually trying to make it mean something without giving anything other than, and I think master should have lower entry fees at the very least, lower entry fees, for crying out loud, not a higher entry fees and less events. Anyway, that's my whole rant about
and the big problem is and you just said it, they had to make a post about their accolades and they're getting pats on their back from people on Facebook. The people, the organizers should put them in the spotlight and recognize them and give them give them lower entry fees, or make it make it worthwhile, make it an accomplishment. It shouldn't be through social media and pats on the back. It should be in the spotlight, by the organizers.
Agreed.
That's an excellent point. Tony, I'm going to switch gears real quick and ask you this about playing this season. What's it been like playing Ryan Moore again? How's that been going?
Ooh, a little jab.
A jab? I'm curious.
I mean, I guess he's been back 2 tournaments, Worlds, and then Colorado. To be honest, it's nothing's really different. Nothing's really changed, to be honest with you. Like Worlds, he had a great tournament. and it was more, and again, I've talked about this before. It's not, for me, winning and losing tournaments doesn't matter. It was more how I play, and I didn't feel like I even played well at Worlds. So that weekend for me, it wasn't a bad thing. Taking second to him. I felt the only positive thing I could take out of it is I felt like I played poorly and I still had a shot to win. I had big problems on the 5-bar. And then that was the only time, Ryan actually played seriously. And I played him in Colorado, and he was just, it wasn't even a real match, to be honest. He was just kind of having fun and just, so that's my point, is nothing's really changed with Ryan. I know he took his time off, but he's still, the same amazing player as he always is. And then he could still kind of be the joker and pretend he's not caring. It's to be honest with you, everything's exactly the same, and he's the same amazing player no matter how much time he takes off.
So, and I asked that question to set up this question. You said something at Bardo that has really stuck with me. You said that it doesn't matter what happens at the tournaments or whatever, you win or lose. You still go home and you're still Tony. You said something like that. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, he's still Tony. He goes home and he's in his huge sub basement that he had dug out, and he's just hanging out with all of his trophies and petting his jackets and shit. But then I thought, I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he was saying was he's just Tony outside of foosball. This is like not an ego thing. And when I say ego, I don't mean in the negative sense. I just mean like you don't define yourself by foosball, if that makes sense. And I'm just wondering, because the way you answered that question about Ryan Moore, I think to a lot of us on the outside looking in, as far as wanting to be consistent champions, don't recognize the fact that we oftentimes put ourselves or value the outcome much higher than we should be, which gets in the way of our performance. And I'm wondering, the way you talk about it now, if this makes sense to you, like you're talking about it from kind of the more advanced, more of the inner game of tennis kind of thing, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? Like, could you speak to that?
No, I think the main thing was like we were talking about wins and losses, and obviously nobody wants to lose, but it happens. Well, for me, I believe that I've lost the ego in the sense that, I had to prove myself to everybody.
Right.
I had to prove something to myself. I had to win a tournament. And this is in part, this makes me more dangerous, is now I can not win a tournament. I could lose every tournament for the rest of my life and still have accomplished everything that I want to in foosball. So what it does, it essentially takes the pressure off me, and I think makes me even more of a dangerous player. And it goes the same as like Todd Lafredo. You ever think, why would Todd roll the ball over on 4-4, fifth game, second set, or overtime? Just roll the dice with an open hand bank shot, and he'll smash it, without hesitation. It's because, you know what? He doesn't care. He's won so many tournaments. He's best player of all time. He's Todd Lafredo. So that, I've gotten to that point, and I think this is what I meant by it, is like I've gotten to that point where at the end of the day, I'm still me. I don't have anything to prove to anybody or to myself.
Nice.
We talked about that. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Jim.
I wanted to shift it a little bit here toward sort of an international perspective. You guys talked a little bit about the ranking system earlier and how maybe the ITSF way of looking at things is beneficial. And, the one weakness to the ITSF thing, and we've seen this, what was his name? Charlie Friesum a few years ago, who literally went to every tournament and was like rated number 3 in the world on the ITSF rankings.
Yeah.
But again, usually the cream rises to the top, and it encourages people to play. And I actually use that ranking system when I'm working international events. But we also talked about how in this era, the last 10, 15 years, maybe there's 5 players maybe who could win an open singles title, or maybe 5 teams that could win open doubles, unlike what it was in the 90s and the early 2000s or back in the 70s. But when you go to international events, when you go to a World Cup, when you go to an ITSF World Championship, That's different. There you get all these different styles, you get all these different great players. And one thing that the results tell us over the last 10 or 15 years is that there are quite a few guys that could win it, from a variety of countries. Your experience playing internationally, Tony, do you get that when you get over there, you get immersed in that international scene with all those different countries, all those great multi-table players? Do you get a sense that it is more of there are more players who could win? It is more of an unknown. Maybe it's more stimulating and exciting for you as a competitor as well. Give us a little taste. I have a follow-up question to this as well, but give us a little taste of your international experience.
In that subject, the fact that people can win, anybody can really win. Apart, like Fred obviously dominated. He was a level above everybody, but everybody below him, it's kind of a toss up. And to be honest with you, I think the main reason is that the tables are limited. For instance, look at like a table like Garlando. You're only able to do so many things on the table, as far as like, you're not gonna be able to tic tac the ball the way that you would on Tornado, or a Bonzini. There's a way that those players play on Bonzini that it's obviously the French are the best on that table, and it's because they've mastered the way to play it. The chip passes are going to be the most efficient way, a chip and a brush, and then obviously a front pin. So there's only so many different things you could do on some of the tables. The guys who are amazing at it, they really are good. But like, for instance, the new German scene, there's tons of young kids, but it's a kind of a boring style. I'll be honest. Like, if you go to the Leonhardt tournament, everybody's doing a brush pass and setting it up in a snake and taking 16 seconds and just waiting and waiting and waiting. 2 to the 5, brush pass, snake shot. And again, it's consistent, but there's nobody that really stands out. And I went to the Leonhardt Worlds, and first time I ever played the Leonhardt Worlds, and I won open singles. And I definitely wasn't the best player. I mean, to be honest, I was awful, but I was playing fast. I was shooting 5-bar shots. I was playing kind of a Tornado style, an aggressive style, where a lot of these guys, they're like looking at me like, well, why don't you wait for me to get back there? I'm just firing away. I'm playing kind of bar foosball, and
Yeah,
maybe they felt disrespected by my 5-bar shots, or I don't know, but they just never really dealt with someone just kind of hacking, and I'll admit it, I was a total hack, but I was aggressive.
Well, who knows? Maybe that's going to have to be your home table next year at the World Cup. We'll see.
Ooh.
Still lots of negotiation to do there before that's the final thing. One final question for me, though, on the international topic. You said it yourself. You've done everything. You've won everything in the sport. You're satisfied with what you've done. However, there is one title you have not won, and I'm wondering whether it is on your radar, whether you still kind of crave that international multi-table singles championship, which you have yet to get. And it's like it's kind of surprising that you haven't gotten one. But how much does that individual title mean to you?
To be honest with you, it doesn't really mean anything. Again, there's no real incentive for me to win it, other than, I don't know, like, a notch on my belt, I guess. But again, I'm pretty realistic. I believe that if I were to actually practice on all the other tables and truly try to be a multi-table player, I'd have no problem winning it. I've played abroad where.
Yeah, you've been close a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah, and like when I played Yannick in the finals of singles, when I had to play him in on tech ball, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how much time I spent on tech ball leading up to that match? I've never touched a table in my life.
Really?
Exactly. I've never ever even touched it. It was the first time I ever even played a ball. And I'm in the finals of the tournament.
And again, last question from me, though. But would you not agree that in this day and age, in this modern era, that maybe, and of course we know the respect that all the great players have for the Tornado Championships, but would you not agree that maybe that title is, it's certainly in the eyes of the international foosball community, the biggest title the multi-table singles championship?
I don't know. I can't really speak for anybody else. I know, to me, it doesn't. Again, if it meant that much to me, I would be practicing and trying to win it. So
You know
for
what?
me, so that's, I don't know. It doesn't really
Let me
mean anything to me.
I want to make two remarks and then a question. I want to remark on this, Tony, because you and I spoke. I think you might have been yesterday, or might have been the day before yesterday, and we spoke about this very thing, Jim. And when I met Tony, he was either 17 or 18, and he was frankly, a wily, angry kid who had a chip on his shoulder and was beating men to do it. And the man you are now, Tony, and I told you this on the phone yesterday, or whenever it was, 2 days ago. He's like, if you could call it a 360 as opposed to a 180, he's like a wandering monk now. And it does make you dangerous. It makes you dangerous because now he's into the purest reason to compete is when you're competing against yourself. And Tony at this point competes against himself. And I absolutely believe it. I do not believe that you even think that the multi-table singles championship is a feather in your cap. I think Tony will show up and he'll play every ball like it's the most important ball, and he either win or he won't win. And at the end of the day, it won't matter because he's already done everything he's needed to do. That's that first comment. Second comment is I love the idea that German accuracy and engineering on the Leonhardt got bashed by American hacker, bar hacking. I love it. That's my favorite.
Everything you said about that was absolutely true, by the way. And I'm somebody who has worked a lot of German events, and by about Sunday night at a P4P event or a Leonhardt event, I'm going, boy, this sure looks familiar.
That's so good, dude. It's like a cowboy who just walks into an engineering, like a watch shop made by Germans, just starts crashing shit. Anyway, but here's my question. And mind you, this audio may be used. I know you're going to do something great for me in terms of some video for the Iron Man. This audio may be used, so I just want to give you a heads up. I want you to speak a little bit to your experience at the Iron Man Invitational and how, if you feel good about this event coming up, that you know that the Thunderdome coming up in your neck of the woods or a little bit south of there, wherever it is. What are your thoughts on the Iron Man? Your memory of it, and what do you feel about this event coming up?
That half a point really screwed me. I had a crappy goalie, man.
I don't think that was me that I'm thinking about it.
Oh no, wait a minute. I was the goalie. I forgot.
Yeah.
I was the goalie.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
still though.
Right. It's probably because I have slow hands.
Okay, so
dude, I'm feeding the bear, by the way. I'm feeding the bear, by the way. I'm poking you. So now you got your.
Hey, don't shout the quiet part, Mark.
Keep going, man. Talk about the Iron Man a little bit before we run out of. I guess we got a little bit of time. Talk just a little bit.
The Iron Man. To be honest, Mark, I don't.
Oh, God.
How long ago was this?
It was 18 years ago.
I don't remember too much about the Iron Man.
Never mind. Just wait. Never mind. I'll feed you lines for your video, dude. Go to hell.
The bear was hibernating, Mark.
What about Tony? But to Mark's point, what about that kind of a format? As you envision this kind of format, which really tests every part of your game, goalie, forward, singles, etc. That's got to kind of be exciting, because for me, thinking about it as a player at heart, I would love that kind of thing. It's something different. It's something that really does, I think, kind of prove who is the best of the best.
Yeah, it's a test to see who is the all-around best player. But because you have to get switched around, it really it really gives everybody a chance to win. So that's how, especially think about super doubles. Why is it always such a popular event? Because everybody kind of feels like they have a chance to win. There's no one clear-cut winner. Because everyone has different strengths and different weaknesses. Obviously, I don't shoot out of the back. I'm not the strongest goalie. That's going to weigh me down. So it's interesting. It's just a different dynamic, something that hasn't been,
done.
It really hasn't been done. Yeah, like I said, a couple tournaments that you've done like that. It's just it's different. And you know what? We need different, because foosball, to me, it's been in a rut. So we need something to kind of spark everybody's interest and just kind of mix it up again, because, again, we need some fuel to the fire. Things are getting kind of stale and stagnant. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Let me jog your memory and then ask you a question. So jog your memory. There was 4 events. There's 4 events. You won the draw your partner, and you won the bring your partner. You took you went out and 2 in the designated because you had to play forward, and then you beat me in the first round of singles. You lost in the third round of singles to Adrian, and there were 5 rounds of singles. So if you would have won one more match, you would have won the event. You lost by half a point to Lewis. Lewis didn't win any of the events and took second in the singles to Billy and won the whole thing by half a point. And you were pissed because he walks away with like $3,000, and you're mad at me. I'm like, dude, the points are where the points. But let's get to the question. The question is, we're doing this in South Florida. We're going to do the Iron Man 2.0. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but maybe I've been market testing what people will pay for it. I think I even asked you like 9 months ago. But if we get between 32 and 64 guys to pay $500 each, and I market tested this event, by the way, at $700. I don't know if guys are talking out of their rears or what, but a half dozen masters told me they would pay $700 each to play an event with 32 pros and masters in it. Would that kind of be interesting for you to pay a high dollar amount and you just split that money up between the 32 of you guys? The best man wins.
I mean, obviously, I'm gonna be all for it. This is what I do. So obviously, I'll pay if everyone's gonna put up a bunch of cash. I'm in.
All right.
But here's the thing: is it gives incentive. It all goes back to incentive. It's gonna be it makes it exciting, and there's a reason if you can walk away winning that tournament, there's gonna be a pretty good reward.
Yeah, if it's a 15-grander and 32 guys are splitting it up, and everybody it doesn't pay out 100% at every spot. So someone's going to walk away with a big chunk of change. I know you're going to play this event. It's going to happen, and I'm excited to have you in it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more details.
Tony, we have a question from our audience. Foozer27 wants to know how about a new format for a major tournament? How would that go?
I mean, I guess it would depend on what the format actually was. I mean, that's really hard to say. Well, right. But kind of expounding on what I'm saying, anything different. Mm-hmm. Anything different is always going to be exciting.
Right. Well, no,
yeah, and to that point, even Tony, and you've played the Swiss system in Europe at European events, and comparing that to the double elimination system format used here, is that something you would embrace if it was more common here in this country?
Yeah, I don't see why not. There's pros and cons. Obviously, like I like double elimination. It's what I grew up playing. However, the cons to it is that there's a lot of conflicts, and the tournaments run till 5, 6, 7 in the morning sometimes. Mm-hmm. The Swiss system, obviously, it sucks to travel across, especially when I play in Europe, across the world, and on a foreign table and play, one match. And then lose. That's hard. You don't have a chance to really redeem yourself. However, the matches are scheduled. It can be done in a professional manner. So there's pros and cons to both sides of it.
So recently, you traveled to Italy. What was going on there? I know you posted some pictures of Italy a couple weeks ago. What was going on?
I went over there to play the European Champions League, and it's a team event, and I am a member of Eintracht Frankfurt.
Cool.
And so I went and played with our group of guys, including Rob Atha and Pascal Salzgeber, Christopher Marks, Martin Dusa, Uli Stupel, and there's a few other guys on there that I'm missing, but.
And what kind of tables were you guys playing on?
It's a multi-table format.
Okay.
Our team chose Tornado.
Cool.
And we ended up losing to the Danish team.
Really?
And so we lost to a Danish team, and they ended up winning the whole thing. It was essentially the Danish national team. I mean, they were it was an awesome.
Oh.
They were amazing. But I actually blew it for our team. So
blew it. How's that possible?
Yeah, well, typically, you have to essentially hold serve on your home table. We went on Tornado, they went on Bonzini. And in this particular format, to win a match, you need to score 12 points. Well, we were winning 9-5, and I had to score 3 points on my home table. And they came back and scored 7 consecutive on Tornado against me and Robert Atha.
No kidding.
Oh, wow.
That's hilarious. Dude, were you drunk? I mean, it's fine.
I'm
No.
dropping Tony down my top 50 list right now.
Right. It's a
one of the
fluid
neat
list.
things, I've worked a couple of those club championships. And again, these are clubs. You mentioned the Danish team, which would predominantly Danish, maybe all Danish. And Bonzini is their home table, by the way. Denmark, very strong Bonzini nation. But other clubs like yours are very international, aren't they? I mean, they bring in players from the U.S. or Great Britain or Austria in various countries to be a part of this club, kind of like what professional soccer does, right? And it's really a kind of a cool thing, isn't it? These events are actually pretty cool, unless you allow 7 straight goals on Tornado to the Danes. But other than that, the format itself, the way it's played, the way it's presented, is a pretty cool event, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely, again, it's exciting. It's something different. And then the team aspect is always fun. That's why, the World Cup is always exciting, just because there's a certain, camaraderie between the teams. And so yeah, the team events are great. But the cool part about this is, like you said, it's not necessarily a national team. It's very international. And so you get a cool mix of players, and it's almost as if we're like, it adds a feel of being like a professional athlete. Like I get brought over there by by our team. And I had an Italian team this year trying to like recruit me for their team. I felt like, it makes you kind of feel like you're a pro athlete, getting traded team to team or whatever.
That's cool.
So it's exciting. And you see these guys kind of like straddling for some of the top players. Like our team just acquired Kevin Hunsdorfer. He's now with Eintracht Frankfurt. So because the year before we took second and we lost on Garlando, so now we're trying to find Garlando players to kind of fill in the gaps. So
is it frowned upon at all that Athletes playing for Eintracht Frankfurt and the UK team is like trying to be carried by like Stephen Lyle and is it just it's what it is? What it is? I mean, does Rob even feel bad? What?
No, I'll tell you what, because Rob, we all know Rob.
Yeah.
I had to play in one of our qualifiers. I had to play against some English guys, and this guy couldn't clear the ball on me out of the back, and Rob's telling the English guy how to shoot on me on my zone, and they end up beating me. So I don't know. I just had I had a pretty bad tournament, to be honest with you.
That's funny.
Yeah,
but pictures were nice.
Yeah, I got to drop here in a minute, though, Tony. So I just had one last thing for you. You and I are still playing at the Hall of Fame Classic, I presume. I've got the IPAs, and I will be playing forward just to prove that I can play better forward than Adam Gilson with you.
Wow.
But let me know, buddy. At some point, let's do it. But anyway, Tony, I just I do have to drop. I got kids and all that. But thanks for joining us tonight. And I know the guys are going to hang out a little longer with you. But I really appreciate you coming on and hope you have a great holiday season. And then as we move into 2022, let's get a fresh start on 2022. And I know you're such a part of the fabric of American and international table soccer that let's take what we've learned from this year, kind of coming out of COVID and all of that. And let's take it and let's make a greater future for table soccer. And I know you're a big part of that. But thanks again, buddy.
I appreciate everything you do, Jim. You always have my full support, and maybe one of these years we could play something.
Yeah, maybe when you're 60 or so, we could play in the
non-committal doubles. Non-committal doubles.
Hey, Tony and I played a couple times before, late night in New York one night. It was a lot of fun, I remember. But
highlight of your career, Jim. Highlight
of my career. Number one highlight. Yes, that's for sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, buddy. See you.
By the way, Tony, when Jim says he has to go to take care of his kids, it means he has a weak bladder tonight. So that's his reason for jumping off. But hey,
dropping the kids off at the pool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's not a bladder at all. Actually,
that's not a bladder situation. All right. So this is after dark now. Is that what this is? What's happening?
What
are we doing?
Overtime. No, it's not.
Oh, it's overtime.
Yeah, we had decided overtime.
I like that.
So
okay.
The ghost of Jim Stevens.
There you go. Well, now all the rules are off. So Tony, let's talk heavy metal. Let's talk about music. What do you say?
Well, I'm actually skipping a concert right now to be here with you guys.
Wow, dude.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Why? Just hang up, dude.
Yeah.
Time. Go.
Well, no, I am still recovering from Friday night show, but right now going on is you want to talk death metal, the band, the legendary band Death out of Tampa, Florida, is doing a tribute show to their late singer Chuck Schuldiner.
Oh.
And a lot of for those of you that don't know death metal history, which is probably everybody, Tampa is like the home of, the American death metal scene.
Okay.
And it is, I mean, there's tons of like huge bands that come from out of here, from this area. So a lot of those guys have, all played together at some point in their career. But so that's going on right now. They sold out our local club 2 nights in a row.
No
and
kidding.
it's just a tribute show. Obviously, the guy's not around anymore.
Right,
so.
right. So the remaining members of the band are out there paying tribute to their fallen lead singer. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going on right now. I was at a show the Friday night, just a local scene.
Cool.
And I actually saw a black metal band from one exit away. And for those of you that don't know, I live in rural Florida, and most of the scene is in Tampa or the big cities.
Right.
And I had no idea there was a female-fronted lead singer.
No doubt.
Is black metal a genre of music, or is like an ethnic? Like, I have a black friend. I have a black friend.
Well,
I have a black.
It's happened before. Living Color was a great band.
Not NWA or what's it called, Body Count. Not Ice-T. Ice-T does Body Count. Now this is like Norwegian style. Like burn churches type, black metal. So I actually got fake blood spit on me. So it was
nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Obviously a good time.
Yeah.
I thought that was like saying I have a black friend. I'm thinking you have a medio. It's cool.
So to somebody who doesn't know any better, what's the differences between like death metal and black metal? Like how do you point them out?
The singing style, the speed. A lot of black metal could be like symphonic, with organs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different style. The context of the lyrics. Death metal is a little bit, more of a crunchier tone, and vocally is going to be a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Kind of like I guess sometimes they call it like a Cookie Monster sound. Is what the Cookie Monster vocal. But so I mean, there's so many music genres now.
No, I was just.
It's hard to classify. You know what I mean?
It's amazing what all the different combinations you hear now. Just recently, I was out at a DYP, and somebody was playing a metal band